नमस्कार, वेलकम टू कॉमन इंडियन वॉइस। आप लोगों को पता है आजकल हमारे देश तो वैसे भी ना, जब से 2014 से चेंज ऑफ गवर्नमेंट, सो वी हैड वन इश्यू आफ्टर द अदर, और हर इश्यू में कुछ ना कुछ हंगामा होता है। तो लेटेस्ट हंगामा है मैरिज एक्ट जो है उसमें 18 से 21 क्यों कर दिया। उसके लिए वी हैव अ वाइड रेंजिंग पीपल telling us why it is wrong, but no one will tell us why it is right. So, and then we have another situation on our hand which is quite worrying, and wo hai ki, there is a kind of tendency to normalize lynching. So that is not really good. It's not healthy for the society. And to discuss that, you people will be very happy, and I think I'll have lots of people blessing me because I again have Nandini ma'am and Samir, and both of them, they don't require any introduction. But yes, Nandini ma'am, I was very surprised yesterday to know that she's also an author. She has written. I am actually a fan of her writing. She writes very well. I just hope one day I might be able to write something like her, but I actually don't have much hope. And on the other hand, we have Samir is, a class of his own. The way he writes, his wit is awesome. And he can have a very straight face and come up with one-liners which are mind-blowing. So welcome both of you. Namaskar. Thank you for joining me. Okay, the first question is to both of you. मैं जानना चाहती हूँ, ये जो आप आर यू इन फेवर ऑफ द बिल जो एक्ट है, raising the age from 18 to 21 of women marriage age? Are you both in favor of it? And if yes, why? If no, why? Yes, Nandini ma'am.
Well, there was so many conflicting opinions. I wasn't very sure which way it worked. But after reading all kinds of opinions on the matter and talking to people and understanding it, I would think it's a very good move, a step. First of all, the marriageable age of both boys and girls, men and women, should be the same. So I think 21 for men and for women is good. Secondly, I think women will have the opportunity to lead, have more to do in their lives, probably work, educate, find a vocation, which makes you more mature and physically, mentally. I think it has more positives than negatives. I'm very happy with the move.
Okay, Samir, what do you think about it?
Yes, it's a move that needs to be supported on multiple counts, and going by the government's line of thinking, which has been articulated by Nandini, it's a move that everyone should support. Having spent over 2 decades in medical services, I think there's a very important medical angle as well to this, because you see, when you when a woman, if you make 18 as the marriageable age for a girl, in our scenario, the family starts looking for a groom when the daughter's already 15 or 16. 2-3 साल लगी जाएंगे जब तक, so that those familial pressures already start building up. And this is the age which is perhaps the most productive age for a child that is growing up, 15, 16, 17, 18, these are formative years, both for mental, physical, emotional conditioning. So giving the girl child that much more time to develop until she reaches 21 is perhaps a very crucial element in ensuring that she's able to do well for herself, and it should be supported, to be very honest.
I, in fact, was wondering whether, in the urban scenario, 21 works very naturally. I was more interested to see how does it work in a rural scenario. That how will girls and families work towards now occupying their daughters for these 3 or 4 extra years. And I was talking in my workshop and on my construction site to my labor, and because mostly boys of 22 and 23 who get married to 17, 18-year-old girls. And I was asking them that, how does it work for you? Are you in support of this? And they said, नहीं, बहुत अच्छा है. लड़कियां सिलाई सीखना सकती हैं और बुनना सीखना सकती हैं, इतनी चीजें हैं जो वो कर सकती हैं, और जब शहर में आएंगी हमको मदद कर सकती हैं कमाने में. मतलब मौका तो होगा, मतलब whether they do it or not, but they are equipped. And there was in fact, one young boy even told me that, do you know, there is they even train in my village women to repair motor pumps and water pumps for the fields. And it's a woman's team which goes around from farm to farm or landholding to landholding, repairing these things. So, I mean, there is an opening up of thought. And in fact, if there's enough opportunity, I think anybody would grab it and take it, except of course some who would need some convincing about the matter. But I think it's a move to be supported, definitely.
Indeed.
Definitely. मैं एक चीज बोलना चाहती हूँ, जैसे मैं कुछ spaces में थी, and वो spaces में there was one person who said कि हमारी ना traditions पे affect हो रहा है, and आप लोगों को गौना प्रथा पता होगा कि पहले शादी कर देते थे मगर वो लड़की का विदाई नहीं होती थी, and he went on to quote various things. But हम लोगों ने जब उनको समझाने की कोशिश की कि think about it from a point of view of the girl. अगर रूरल गर्ल्स भी आप बोल रहे हैं, अगर एज बढ़ जाता है मेडिकली, जैसे समीर हैव सेड, मेडिकली भी इनको हेल्प होने वाला है, and yeah, she can find options for herself. Yes, Sameer, you wanted to say something. Ask the question after.
Yeah, I was reading a statistic. It says that currently the average age at which a girl is getting married is about 22.6, if I'm not mistaken. So if that is a pan-Indian average, then a lot of this discussion is much ado about nothing. You know, jab essentially 22.6 पे वैसे ही see, there would be outliers in every statistic. उसको हम deny नहीं करते हैं. But there is a step taken by the government to try and bring the marriageable age on parity with the existing averages. Or when you talk about national averages, obviously they are skewed towards non-metro India because of the larger size of the population that exists outside of non-metros. So it's safe enough to assume that even quite contrary to what we would imagine or what our perception of that is, girls are increasingly getting married at a later age, and this is seen even in urban households where we have staff who now, you know, you don't get them as easily as you would earlier, because today a lot of girls in tier 2, tier 3 towns are finding good jobs in malls. They're getting educated. भले ही मतलब, you know, the graduation or the desired higher education levels are not yet attained, but there is a perceptible shift towards learning, towards acquiring vocational skills like Nandini mentioned. और ये सब, इन सब से आप उनको वंचित रखते हो if you're trying to pressurize them into starting a family, you know, at 18. And so I think there's more to it than meets the eye. And this discussion, to be very honest, is once again, as someone very aptly said in a one-liner, this law is not good because Modi has brought it. So that's how it went.
That's absolutely true. Nandini ma'am, I would like to ask you from the point of view of childbirth. Means a woman, yeah, she can give birth when she's 18 years old, but don't you think to become a mother, she's a bit more mature when she's 21? And she will be able to handle it better.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you're a child, why should you have a child? If the time is when you're older, when you can take responsibility, your body is ready. You're learning. You're doing so many new things together. You're just married. You have a baby. You don't space out, you know, your children as yet. I mean, I think it's so much better to be older and to decide. And maybe you'd even delay having babies a little later, because if you are equipped and you've got a vocational skill, you might be able to contribute to your home. And in the bargain, the children you raise will naturally be better educated and have better opportunities. So you raise the overall, you know, standard of your family and people alongside you. And like they say, you educate a woman, you educate the family. So I think it's very important. And, you know, I also don't want to pay too much attention to education, academic education. Everybody is not cut out for it. There is a great need to encourage other vocations and skills, which are very important. And I think that should be now the emphasis. If you're going to not expect girls to get married till 21, then offer them an alternative. Offer them a life which gives them a full life, rather than just waiting to get married.
Skill education. They can go in for skill education.
Yes, so much.
Sameer, I will ask this question specifically to you. Isn't it surprising that it is a section of the males who are protesting more rather than the women? They are more vociferous about it. What exactly is their problem?
So here in the current scenario, you don't need a reason to oppose. That would be the premise. So you would, as I said, a lot of people who would have otherwise supported this are caught between a rock and a hard place. They feel it's a good move, but coming out openly in support of this would seem as a shift from their allegiance towards the political ideology that they claim to represent. So if you view this with a political prism, then you will have as we saw in the other laws as well. So there is senseless opposition, gender based opposition. मेरे ध्यान में इतना नहीं गया, but हाँ वो एक section of society है. So that's where the political angle comes into it, and I didn't know when you would weave it in, but since you asked me, perhaps I could take the opportunity to talk about this. ये एक मेरे ख्याल से it is also the government is testing the waters, because from whatever I've heard, along with the Prohibition of Child Marriages Act, they are also going to amend the other personal marriage acts and the other acts which ride on this, so that there is parity across all faiths and everyone falls in this bracket of 21. Otherwise, this law becomes meaningless, because you'll have large swathes of the population which would use personal law to circumvent this ruling. And this, in my opinion, is a first step towards the UCC that we are all, there's so much buzz about. Remains to be seen how the government holds its ground and is able to see this through. I don't want to speculate on that. So it's a welcome move. If it works well, it's obviously the first step towards UCC. That's my limited view.
A question a little bit away from this marriage act is that whenever there were some what should I say, social evils followed by Hindus too. I mean, directly I'm asking this question, and we have seen, I don't know, we were not there at that time, but yeah, we did away with Sati Pratha, we brought in widow remarriage, and many things. Hindu Marriage Act also has come about. The point is, now we look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is drastically changing. They are bringing in lots of changes. So why is it that, in our country, we see that they're still, they're holding on. In fact, they are actually becoming, what should I say, very rigid with their rules. And I don't know, means a father coming on, a well-known person coming on the television, national space, and he's coming and saying ki, it's not very, it's not a good thing. मतलब शैतान आ जाएगा, I cannot be alone with my daughter. ये सोच क्यों आ रहा है? Isn't it worrying for the society as such? And if they are following Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia में changes आ रहा है, तो हमारे यहाँ क्यों नहीं? उसमें फिर oppose क्यों?
I saw yesterday a very interesting YouTube with, I will, just find the link and tell you about it, that how are the changes affecting the Indian Muslim, the changes in Saudi Arabia, because the Indian Muslim looks towards Saudi Arabia for example, for lifestyle and so on. And it has, these changes are leaving the Indian Muslim rather confused, because this is who they had looked to. And, if the changes are coming there, then what justification will have the Indian Muslim to remain caught in old, ways and old thinking? Now, this gentleman you were talking about, he has, I think, constantly he has this reputation. From what I've seen, he always says the wrong thing at the wrong place, or probably that's what he thinks, which is highly dangerous. I mean, he's not fit for public life. If you actually come up on national TV and say, I cannot be left alone with my daughter because, I might have the devil, which will shaitan, which might descend upon me. I mean, keeping him aside, the loonies like him aside, I think these changes have just come into Saudi Arabia. It takes time to travel the waters. Who knows? In time, there will be a different thinking here as well if they see that. Also, I think what happens is that I have seen there is a certain minority mentality when you live in another country, which is not where the majority is not who you are. You probably have a competitive reason to remain fixated in who you are, your identity, and it's very difficult for you to shed it off. And you see in the Middle East, they don't allow namaz on the streets. They don't allow the loudspeaker for the azan. They have done away with all that. Whereas our Muslims still insist on these things, railway tracks, and now what's happening in Gurgaon, and so on and so forth. There's a desire to mark your turf. Perhaps they will calm down when they see the changes are happening in the rest of the world, and they have to move with the times, or their own people, the educated among them, because that's a very, very big problem in Europe now, because their own people are trying to distance themselves, a lot of them, which they don't talk about, the ex-Muslims, about how they are no longer justifying what has been taught to them or what is expected from them. So who knows? It's early days still in Saudi Arabia. It didn't happen overnight. It has taken years and decades to reach there. So it might, who knows, hopefully permeate and come down here too. I would hope so.
So Ishadi.
Sorry, Samir, 1 minute. At the end of the day, Samir, what is happening is that the common people suffers. See, the wealthy, educated in any religious group, they don't really have to go through all this rigidity. It is the common people, the poor people who, who are bound, and they are the ones who suffer.
Right. So it's a very valid point made by Nandini in terms of, the marking of turf. And the reason being, see, let's look at it this way. Saudi is a monarchy, and nobody has to win elections there to legislate. I mean, it's just someone's going to rule from that family. In most democracies where Muslims are a minority, it's a few powerful few, largely of clerical, clergy, not clerical, the clergy who dominate and set the political discourse. So Islam, or any other religion for that matter, has a lot of political undercurrents in countries where, in democracies, where they're in a minority. And it is the powerful elite few, the mullahs, who have traditionally used it to influence their followers, because it's one way of holding fort over your group of followers. And that more often than not is the reason why we stick to the old traditional form of how the faith is practiced, and don't I don't know. It's like that. Yeah, when you look up to the Saudis, but you just want to take part of what they're doing, and you don't want to adopt to the reforms that they're advocating. That's because it's purely political, I think, and we can just keep our fingers crossed and hope some better sense prevails in some of the more forward-thinking people in the faith to sort of raise the demand for moving ahead with times. I think that's what should be
true.
एक इससे लिंक करके ही मैं बोल रही हूँ, आजकल जैसे अभी दे आर ट्राइंग टू नॉर्मलाइज देयर परवर्टेड थॉट्स और व्हाटएवर नेम यू वांट टू गिव इट टू देम. यहाँ पे एक हम देख रहे हैं कि लिंचिंग को भी नॉर्मलाइज करने की कोशिश किया जा रहा है. आई डोंट वांट टू गो इनटू द पॉलिटिकल थिंग एंड हु हैज सेड व्हाट. मेरा सिर्फ एक ही क्वेश्चन है कि भाई आप लोग ठीक है, व्हाटएवर वाज द रीजन, but people have lost their lives. So how do you normalize that, and why do you normalize that? Sameer, and then
I think extreme thought in any faith is not good. God has given this life. Humans don't have a right to take it. Regardless of what that person has done. There is a democratic, especially in countries like ours, where there is a law of the land. The right thing would be to hand over the perpetrator to the justice system and let law take its course, and there are people who would follow it up. But isme there could be more reasons than one, and as I said, there seems to be a sinister motive to create division on religious lines, which we should not fall into, and cannot. It's unfair to drag an entire faith. But again, like I said, politics prevails. People you expect to stand up and condemn the act of mob justice have remained silent for reasons known to them, known to us, but we would choose to so ye thoda sa sensitive issue hai. But as I said, the lynching is, and you see how it has got a global spin. Everyone's talking about sacrilege, blasphemy, as that's made the headlines. And if I saw a couple of tweets of very influential politicians from UK who have completely spun the narrative. They're calling Hindu terrorist enters the temple. On what basis? I mean, what have you done? I mean, there's powerful lobbies at play out here, so we've got to tread very carefully. I would leave the government to eventually figure out how they want to tackle this beast. They probably, so it's, you see, the repeal of farm laws was an unprecedented move, even from the other side. The forces that were pressing on, expecting the government to do something that would provoke and create massive unrest within the country, were taken aback. They want to keep the embers burning. They want to keep the pot sizzling hot. So they would try every dirty trick in the book to do that. And I don't think anyone would want to be in the Prime Minister's shoes right now, to be very honest. So just leave it. Just leave it at that. I think there's very powerful lobbies at play trying to create unrest in this country for the next couple of years, which are going to be defining moments as we prepare to take on challenges in the future, 2022 and 2024. So very, very crucial time here. Sanity should prevail, and I do believe that our Prime Minister has divine protection. He's ordained to take us to a bright future. So he might make some mistakes, as I said earlier, but he's here for good. So I would leave it at that.
Nandini ma'am,
No,
at the end of the day, somewhere humanity is losing out, isn't it? In all this.
I think wherever politics come in, humanities has no place because it's all about power and playing people against each other. And that's a very dangerous game. So I don't think human beings count in that at all, But the only thing I feel is that this whole sacrilege and blasphemy, these are very dangerous games. Who is to define? Who is to decide? This is like the witch hunt of the old the medieval ages, where you just put people to stake in case you wanted their property, in case you just didn't like them, or for the most trivial of reasons you found an excuse to put them on the stakes. So I don't know whether lynching is terrible. It can't be normalized. But neither should we start normalizing and accepting, oh yes, there was sacrilege, so the man deserved this, the person deserved this. I think that itself is, going down a very slippery slope if we were to do that. Because then again, there will be that competitiveness where each one of us is going to find something wrong, or we'll feel offended about something in our own faiths when people do it, and there'll be no end to the story. So people have to stand up and say, look, this is a very medieval concept. It has no place in the 21st century. And let's stop finding excuses to kill people. This is just an excuse. And this is playing into the hands of very dangerous people who, as Samir said, just want to divide us. And the part where we will have to, we come in is where we use our sensibilities and our intelligence and realize the game that is being played and not fall into the trap, which is not going to be easy. How many people are you going to convey it to? I mean, I see it on Twitter. There's so many people who are saying, oh, don't fall into this trap. And there are the people who are saying, I'm heartbroken and what is happening to my country and what are we doing? So there's so much high emotion, and we have to calm it and cool it down, because there is no doubt, this is, as you said, after the farm laws were repealed, there has to be now an excuse to find something else to keep the pot boiling. And this is it. We can see it play out before our eyes.
You know what? The point is that common man is not actually buying all this story. We have passed that phase. The common man is very intelligent now. He sees through everything.
Yes.
God alone knows. It actually, sometimes it worries me. Like you said, that there's a lot of people writing lots of things, and I don't know why. Sometimes, when such things go, I stop tweeting at all. I just keep thinking, like Samir has said, is it sensible to tweet? Am I going to
add to the noise?
Yeah,
should
exactly.
You be adding to the noise? Yeah.
I just become silent, and means before ending today, I would just like you, ma'am, first, and then Samir, like last time itself. What would you tell them to do? Like you said, we should be calm. Like I told you, I stopped tweeting. I just don't tweet on such topics.
Right.
What would you like to
see? I think we've seen a lot in the last 7 years. We've seen when anything good happens, how many people work against it rather than for it. I mean, there's a certain small number, a certain group, which suddenly wakes up and gets down to, it's almost now predictable. You almost expect it. Anything good happens and you have these people who suddenly wake up. It's almost like, if you've ever seen some of those horrible animation films where, the hyenas come out and the sharks come out and and then those Siamese cats come out, it's almost like that. And now at some point you can stand back and think, oh yes, I expected you all to wake up, and a lot of you, and to churn this whole thing. I think, as you said, we have become, more sensible. We don't react so much. We wait and watch a little more. And we also know there are people, there's a mature leadership. which is probably looking at things, know much more than us in this situation and are handling it. I take comfort in that. I mean, if it was somebody else, I would have probably, I don't want to get into that. So, I mean, I think we have confidence in the people who lead us, and I think we know that they know better about what are the forces at play. And I think we have to step back and let them handle it.
True. Yes, Sameer.
Yes, I tend to agree with every word that Nandini said, because these are difficult times. We got to keep faith in the leadership, because I can't even imagine what can happen if we go back to the 2004 to 14 era. It's set us back by so many decades. It's just it's dangerous. So we've got to keep faith. And if anyone believes that the current Prime Minister cares less about the nation and its well-being than me or anyone else around here, then I think we are sadly mistaken, because that man is working 24/7. He has no personal stakes in this, and that's the only reason and he's not here for anything else that the other dynasties are around. It's not a business for him. So it's a 24/7 job to make this country, rid this country of a lot of unwanted attributes that we have faced over so many years. So we just have to keep the faith, not fall prey to provocative stuff that we see around, and resist the urge to respond to everyone who tries to provoke us. So that's very important. And like you said, if we can't do that, then just stay away from social media for that period where a lot of this thing is going on. You're not going to miss anything. Yeah. And let sanity prevail, and just a prayer that we come out of all this nonsense, and people start thinking. Yeah.
I just want to tell my viewers that, after what Sameer and Nandini ma'am has said, me saying anything will actually is not appropriate. I think they have said everything. So I will just end with Shubh Ratri and the same old cliched word, acha laga to like kijiye, share kijiye, and subscribe kijiye. Thank you so much, both of you. Thank you. Looking forward to another session.
More power to common Indian voice. Yay.
Yes, absolutely.